So, one of the breakout hits of Sundance and the Seattle International Film Festival was this crazy, wacky, brilliant movie called Sorry to Bother You. And the great thing about the Seattle International Film Festival, for me at least, is they bring through these big shot filmmakers, and I had a chance to talk to Boots Riley. Now, Boots Riley you may not know because he's a first-time movie director, but he's also a 20-year-long rapper with the group called KIRO, so he has a lot of, he brings a lot to the table. This particular movie, Sorry to Bother You, is a kind of a social satire. It's kind of a satire about race and class and corporate structure and everything else. And it's a movie that starts with this hilarious premise. It's a joke about telemarketing. It's a black guy trying to convince white listeners to buy something over the phone. He's completely unsuccessful until a fellow employee, played by Danny Glover, by the way. The lead is Lakeith Stanfield, who you might know from Atlanta or the original movie Get Out. He was the guy who said, "Get out!" Anyway, Danny Glover pulls him aside and says, "Son, if you want to have any success in this telemarketing world, you're going to need to develop your white voice." So he develops a white voice and he's a huge success. That's just the premise. That's what you get out of the trailer. The movie has so much more going on, and you'll get a good glimpse of that in this interview you're about to see, me and Boots Riley. First off, I want to thank you, Boots, for showing up. Boots Riley with a great movie called Sorry to Bother You. This is a really biting satire, and I think it's got so many levels at which we can talk about it. I'm really happy that you're here. You're here specifically for the Seattle International Film Festival, and I'm really happy to see that they've made this a centerpiece for a gala that's happening this weekend, and then it'll get this movie will get a regular release come July, national release. Is that right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes. July 6th, select cities. July 13th. Every damn city.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's so many things to talk about, and I've got a lot of questions about it. I want to start off with just the title alone. It's a very clever title. Sure, it's a biting satire, but it's a very clever title because it's the opening gambit for any telemarketer. Sorry to bother you. Yeah. And we'll get into telemarketing in just a second, but I want to ask you, do you want your film to bother people? I know it's a comedy, I know it's a satire, but is your aim to bother people?
Well, whenever you have something that's different than what people are used to, and what's different than the ideas that are normally put out, then it feels it's a little edgy. It's a little,
yeah.
It ruffles you, and then you think about why.
Okay.
So, yes.
So you want people to think, but it's a funny movie. It's it's kind of like an entertaining call to arms, maybe. I mean, is that
definitely? It's
yeah.
Well, to me, what this movie is pointing out is contradiction. And contradiction, irony, and humor are basically one thing.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And the way you get into what your ultimate goal is first off, and there are a lot of, it's this great satire on race relations in this country, and we'll get to that in just a second. That's the most potent part of this movie. But let's just start off with this telemarketing idea. There's something, that seems like such a rich idea or arena for all sorts of cracks and humor and insight and all this. How do you see the profession of telemarketing?
Well, it's for the person doing it, it can be soul killing.
I can imagine.
I've done telemarketing.
You have?
Yeah. And which is, while I was doing it, I was like, okay, I'm going to have my revenge on this industry. But, so this is it. But so I did it. I've been doing music for 20-something years, but at a certain point, I decided to stop. I started back again later, but in that time, I knew I was good at sales, so I did telemarketing, and I was really good at it because I was using all of my creative energy to get people to give me money.
Well, that doesn't sound like such a bad job then.
You could be very successful at it.
Yeah.
But that you're, using your creative energy for the dark side because, for instance, there's probably somebody who could be artistically changing the landscape for the aesthetic of our culture right
yes,
now.
Okay.
And
instead
making some sort of statement that will last through the centuries with their art, but they're somewhere figuring out the font that's going to make you want to buy more cereal for your kids.
Right. Yes.
And that's a waste.
Yeah. What if you're telemarketing for a good cause? That might salve the conscience a bit,
And in
right?
actuality, I was doing tele-fundraising the second time I did telemarketing. So, but it was still sort of crazy. So, for instance, one of my things that I would do is, I was based in Berkeley, but we were raising money for the LA Mission, which is a homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles.
Okay.
But we were calling to Orange County to raise money, which is a very conservative area. And so my pitch was basically something like, hello, we just want to know, we're taking a poll to see how you're doing with the rash of break-ins in your neighborhood.
Okay.
And they'd be like, what? I didn't know about that. Well, okay, that's good that it hasn't touched you yet, because maybe our plan is working, because what we're doing is, we know the police aren't going to solve this. What we want to do is get all the homeless people out of your neighborhood.
I see.
And bring them to downtown Los Angeles.
I gotcha. So it's like preventative measure.
Yeah.
You give us money and we'll keep the homeless in LA.
So yeah, that was, like
pretty sneaky.
So yeah, that was it was really, I had to deal with some conflicts there.
Yeah.
And so that was the type of thing that I did that second time. But I had before that done like newspaper sales and encyclopedias and all that kind of stuff.
It's a bit like David Mamet talks about. One of the things about Glenn Ross, he had to do that cold calling, sales, and it's like it was soul crushing. And it sounds like you had the similar kind of experience, even if for a good cause. And one of the things, again, in this particular movie, and sorry to bother you, what he's marketing, I think, is hilarious. It's a hilarious send-up of something, but I want to find out in your words, what is worry-free and what does it represent to you that this guy is marketing, at least at the initial level?
Well, if I tell you this right here, somebody's going to be after me and try to kill me.
I see. Why is that?
Because there's a spoiler kill squad.
Okay. So even worry-free is considered spoil-free because here's the thing. Okay.
Is this?
Fair enough. I can play by your rules.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Okay, because I really want to know if we could talk about later in the movie, and I think I got my answer then.
Yeah.
We'll have
how I did this movie, how I tailored it was, it's very different in narrative structure.
Yes.
Than most people, and part of the thing that makes that cool is not exactly knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? But there is this company that we learn about early on in the movie that is that offers lifetime guaranteed employment and housing.
Sounds fantastic.
So that plays a big part of it.
That's right.
And it's kind of part of making a statement on kind of the new companies that exist that basically their slogan is, for all intents and purposes, the new capitalism is no capitalism. What? This isn't a company. This is a beanbag sitting place.
Right.
And, we're just hanging out.
It's the third place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not your boss.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm just the guy that tells you what to do.
And you need some direction, don't you? Yeah, okay. That's good. So the one thing I know we can talk about, because it's in all of your trailers, and this ties in exactly with what the pitch is, and it's the way, when I try to explain this movie, because a lot of people in the newsroom haven't had a chance to see it yet, because it's only playing here in the festival so far, the way I can hook them is, well, yeah, he's a telemarketer, but he has to adopt a white voice.
Yeah, so the main character is Cassius Green. He's played by Lakeith Stanfield from the movie Get Out and the TV show Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Cassius Green is a black telemarketer with self-esteem issues and existential angst who discovers a magical way to make his voice sound like it's overdubbed by a white actor. And it sounds like that to the people around him, that there's an overdub.
Right, it does, yeah.
And that white actor is David Cross.
Right. And the joke is, the gag is what? Do we all, I assume when you were telemarketing, and especially if you're talking to Orange County, you had a white voice?
Yeah, there's various kinds depending on where you're calling.
Okay.
And, yeah, so definitely. And that's part of what it's talking about. It's talking about the idea that we're all performing.
Yeah.
There's a statement in there when he's being taught the white voice. It's not on the trailer, but I'm fine with sharing this. is that there is no white voice. There's just there's that even whiteness and blackness is a performance. That even there's what, and in this he's saying this is what white people think they're supposed to sound like.
Okay,
and
yeah.
What and they say there is no white voice, but this is the epitome of the idea that even white people are sold, which is that there's nothing wrong.
Yes.
You don't have a problem. You're not worried about being fired.
Yeah.
You only get laid off, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's talking about the performance of race, and that we all do.
Yeah. And the thing is, we all put on different faces. I mean, the race issue doesn't have to come into it, but it certainly can. I mean, my wife kids me about my company voice when I've got, somebody on the phone. She can tell it's not a friend because of the way I talk. We all do that.
For black folks, that often means, that company voice means making it so that people can't tell that you're black.
Yes, yes. And so already it raises all sorts of ethical issues about who you are in order to be able to perform this particular, endeavor. So let's go ahead and deal with the issue of race here in terms of one of the interesting nuances, I think, of this movie, which is very broad and subtle at the same time, is when he becomes successful in this god-awful telemarketing company. He is shunned by his girlfriend, played by Tessa Thompson, who's fantastic, and his fellow workers, because they feel like he's somehow abandoning the cause. There are two things I want to ask you about this. First is, I found your faith or hope or belief in the power of unions is to be charmingly quaint, because right now unions feel like they've got no power, and in your movie, unions or gatherings of workers for a united effort seems productive, and I was cheered by that personally.
Yeah, the only power that unions are going to have is if they break the law.
Wow, okay.
Unions need to start breaking the law. And the specific law I'm talking about is the Taft-Hartley Rules. Taft-Hartley Rules came up during a season of general strikes throughout the United States in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
The Taft-Hartley Rules basically say that you can't have solidarity strikes. And solidarity strikes are the only way that we're going to actually have any power in certain industries. Because everything, especially now, everything is so broken up.
Yeah.
So I don't think what I'm talking about in the movie is unions as they exist right now.
I see, okay.
But unions as they could be.
Okay, that's great. Now, another issue is unfortunately, he agrees with the cause. They feel like the workers are they're not fair. He, at the very moment he's part of that union activity, gets to go upstairs, becomes one of the power callers, and he is shunned by his fellow workers and his girlfriend. And what I wanted to ask you about is there any guilt within, say, the African American community of somebody who's become successful? Are they automatically seen as a sellout because they've become successful? Is that or not?
Part is he's not shunned simply because he's become successful.
Right.
He's shunned for a couple reasons. One, what he's actually doing in that job. The fact that they have a struggle going on that he could help in, but is choosing not to.
And so you are judging him morally or ethically for continuing
Well,
with
let's
his
put it like this.
advancement.
I wrote
Yeah.
all of these characters
Yes.
from a first person's perspective,
Yeah.
in the sense that when I'm writing the dialogue, I'm basically playing chess with myself.
Yeah.
To make the so that everything that everyone does, everyone in this movie sells out to
Is
some
compromised.
extent.
Okay, I see. Yes.
You know, there's nobody that is just the, you know.
What about
Great.
Detroit though? Tessa Thompson's character is pretty.
Well, this is the thing. So she's dealing with. So, like I said, all of these folks are part of me, and I believe what gets played out in there is she thinks that everything. So there's certain spoilers we have.
Yeah.
to
Okay.
give,
Yeah.
you know,
That's fine.
Yeah.
We can go as.
But it deals with the idea of whether art is effective or not.
Yes, it does. So that's a perfect question for you. You have a long career as a rapper. You now have a very successful, although it's a beginning career, you have a successful career, it looks like, as a movie maker. You are using art to affect change in the world. Could you be seen as a sellout, somebody who is maybe, advancing his own career? Is there a part of Lakeith Stanfield's character that you are yourself,
It
Cassius
definitely is a
Green?
way for me to sell out. I've been offered after this so many terrible movies that,
Is that right?
to direct with a lot of big stars that I didn't even imagine someone would want to make.
Really?
And
you turned up your nose to them?
I wouldn't say I've turned up my nose. I've turned down my thumb.
Is that right?
But
wow.
The,
How long are you going to be able to keep up this ethical high road?
Well, here's the thing. Because I've come onto the scene making a movie that's unlike any other,
Yeah.
and people seem to like it, there's no reason I need to start doing movies like that. That's
Absolutely.
already been done, so I can, keep doing what I want to do.
Okay, that's good.
But that question is a question that I've asked myself at all times. Like, how do I make this art? Which is also one of the reasons that I quit and ended up becoming a telemarketer while I did community organizing, because I was so good at doing telemarketing that I could do one day every 2 weeks. This was before
Wow.
I had kids.
Yeah.
And, one day every 2 weeks, and pay my bills enough so that I could do community organizing in between.
Yeah.
But the question is, does art by itself do anything? No, it doesn't.
Wow. Yeah.
What only way it does something is if it inspires people to organize themselves into actual groupings, organizations,
Okay.
that can then work on affecting material change. But just exposing the way the world is not enough.
It's not enough, really.
Nope.
Wow. So
Because what's going to change that?
yeah.
Like, you can expose the way the world. Noam Chomsky always talks about how in very openly fascist countries, their newspapers aren't necessarily telling lies,
Okay.
because their newspapers are basically saying, we've got our armed security on the street. You aren't going to do anything, and this is what we want to happen.
Yeah.
They don't have to. In a place like the United States, there's a idea that we have more power than we actually do.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so to give across, so more has to be hidden from us.
I see.
Whereas it's, they can't just put it out there. Like, a pimp is gonna tell a hooker, like, fuck you. Oh, excuse me, you can leave that out. Get out there and work.
Okay.
A gigolo is gonna say, I love you so much. I really wish I had some shoes to wear. Two different things.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, let's keep this relationship going because it really works for us. And, you know, if I don't have some new shoes, it'll be hard for me to get to your house tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing, but they have different approaches. And, you know, we're in the gigolo situation.
We are. Okay. So the artist is the gigolo.
I'm saying that media in general.
Ah, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And of which artists are end up being part of it. So when you just then when the artist comes around, they're like, I want to expose the way things are. Sometimes that exposure just ends up saying, look how powerful they are.
Yeah, sort of defeatist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I aim to make art that says, look, here's how we can change it. However, that how we can change it has to do with people not just knowing the truth about the world.
Yeah.
It has to do with people actually organizing at their places of work and organizing to change material things around it. And, you know, let's face it, the main thing most people are worried about every day is not necessarily international news. It's not even, it's not even only what the president has done. It's how the hell do I put food on the table?
Exactly.
And pay the bills?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that everyone has to deal with. And movements have to deal with that.
Okay. So do you feel like at some point you may realize that art is useless and you'll abandon whatever creativity you have?
No, art is communication. So
Okay.
we always have to communicate. And I think what I do is style. Like everything that art is style and aesthetic.
Okay.
And so, but the point is, if you as an artist are disconnected from actual movements that are trying to change it, you don't even understand what the question is.
Okay.
Right? So, for instance, and this is something talked about in this book called 9.5 Theses on Art in Class. But so, for instance, when people were talking against the bombing of Iraq, against the Iraq invasion, some artists that weren't involved in movements but were against the war, they decided that their art needed to be exposing the atrocities.
Okay.
We need to show you that there's blood and guts and stuff. But the folks that were involved in the actual anti-war movement knew that the pivot point wasn't that people didn't know there were atrocities. The pivot point was that people didn't think there was any way that they could stop it.
Yeah.
So for that art to have any real use, you need to be involved with the people on the ground, with the campaigns that are actually engaging with people, so you even know what the question is that you're answering or what the question is you're addressing.
But maybe the people that knew the atrocities aren't the ones that the art is after. Maybe the art is after the rest of us who aren't paying attention to say, hey, listen, you need to look at this.
But I don't think that that's even, I mean, like a lot of art might right now be like, let's talk about how messed up Trump is.
Yeah. Too easy.
Everyone knows that.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha.
Everyone knows that.
Okay.
What is it doing? You know, or what you know, like, or, you know, even more radical things. Let's talk about how messed up, how the system doesn't work for us.
Okay.
I don't think there's anyone that, like, even people that might consider themselves on the conservative side, they understand the inequities of the system.
Okay.
Many people choose what they're going to do based on what they think they can do. You know?
Okay.
It's kind of like, you know, well, it basically is about, I think that really the point is to explain people's power to them. I mean,
Okay.
all these areas that are considered conservative hotbeds. Let's take like Montana,
Okay.
Utah,
Yeah.
Alabama, Colorado. I don't know.
No.
But
They got pot laws. They're not
Yeah,
that
yeah.
conservative.
in the 1920s, those are, somebody's like 40. Your grandparents were there at the time.
Yeah.
Those people's grandparents were communist radicals.
Okay.
J. Edgar Hoover said in the 20s said that Utah, Montana, and Alabama were hotbeds of communist activity.
Okay.
Their concerns haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is whether people think they can change what's going on. And they've changed their viewpoint on how to get those things.
You're suggesting that red states today really
Were
40,
red
50,
states.
were
I'm
communist
not
red
suggesting it is
states.
historically
Okay.
accurate. All these songs that are like union songs
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
You're right.
Like
The
Kill
Wobblies
the
and-
Boss,
yeah.
those were in those areas.
Yeah.
You
Huh.
know, those were in those areas.
So is art then propaganda for you? Do you make a
No,
distinction
art is
between?
propaganda for everyone.
Okay. No, I mean, yeah.
Like,
but by
I think-
definition, yeah.
No, I mean, no. I'd make terrible art if that was the case.
Okay.
I think that when you are being honest about what you think, the only way to make good art is to be honest with yourself about what you think about the world.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're making all these things happen that don't make sense. You end up getting motivations for people that don't align with other things, and it just makes bad art. And often the writers of many of the movies we see, that's what you're seeing is happening, is like people aren't letting their holistic view of the world affect that character. those
Okay.
characters.
Then what role? I love this. What role does entertainment have in creating good art that's going to change the world?
Well, I think art is communication. Art is discussion.
Okay.
I'm just saying discussion alone is
Is-
not enough.
Okay. Fair enough. Is your movie Sorry to Bother You enough, or is it
No.
It's not. Okay.
Hopefully it leaves you thinking about it enough to where that discussion is going on and it disturbs you in a way that you're trying to figure out how to quell that disturbance.
Okay. Do you see parallels with Get Out in your film? Is that a question that you like or not?
Say that because some people are like, oh, this is a child of Get Out, and this is,
Yeah.
Jordan Peele's a friend, and I love his work. My script was published in 2014.
Yes.
As part of
So,
McSweeney.
so Get Out
I think
is
it's-
basically a child of Sorry to
I
Bother You.
won't even say that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that there's a culmination of feelings and ideas
Yeah.
that are building up in the world.
Yeah.
And
Well, the thing is, the parallel that I see, and I'm not trying to give one, attribute one's precedence to the other, but it's this idea that the way an African American has to navigate the world is one thing. It establishes it in both of your movies, establishes that, and then he realizes, and this week we're going to end up talking about something you don't want to talk about, and we don't have to, but it ends up that the world that's in control is a lot more devious than you can possibly imagine.
Well, here's what I wanted to do was bring people through the experience. Like, I didn't want us to just watch Cassius going through these things.
Okay.
I wanted to bring people through emotionally through those experiences. I wanted to force that upon the crowd to where you end up getting something similar to what happens when you find out new ideas, when you get new ideas. Like a lot of people experience that around college or whatever. You find out this new stuff that makes you change your view of
Right.
the world.
Yeah.
And so that happens a few times in the movie. And the way that happens, is necessarily sometimes shocking.
Yes.
You know.
In a brilliant way. I mean, I can't remember, I was trying to think, the last time I think I was that caught off guard by a development of a movie were the frogs in Magnolia by Paul Thomas Anderson. It's like, what is going on? And it really is, it's an energizing part of the movie, and I appreciate the fact that we don't have to talk about it except to recommend it.
People on their toes.
Yes.
So you're like engaged. So you're there's something great about structure and rules to a certain extent, because then you as an artist can play within these things. And as a viewer, you're like, okay, I know what the rules of this are, and I'm gonna watch this artist dance within those rules. And I can pinpoint times and see what the little thing they did different and all that kind of stuff. And it's cool. But then after a while, I think even with that, the viewer can tune out. They can be like, oh, I'm watching a heist movie. This is cool that they were able to successfully do that. But this is the part where I can go to the bathroom.
Right,
And because I can go back and I get back. And,
I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about your movie. You never know where the damn thing is going.
You better go to the bathroom before you go.
That's right. Okay, listen, I think I've probably gone on longer than my allowance, but I want to ask you then, you mentioned that you've had people coming, coming to you and pitching you what you consider sort of bad ideas or bad offers. Do you now know, I know this is your first film, and usually your first film is like a baby that you've nurtured for years and years and years. Do you have thoughts of your next, film venture, or are you going back into, you've been a rapper, are you going back into the music realm?
I have about 20 ideas, and 14 of them are great.
Is that right? Wow. Well, you better get going. You're a young man, but still, that's a lot of. Okay.
I got.
So a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, I'm working on a feature script and a pilot.
Okay. And given how careful you are about not revealing things, even in the movie that's already finished, you're probably not going to tell me too much about either of those, huh? Well, congratulations. It seems like a launch of a great new career for you. And one last question. Is there much difference between being a rapper in the music world and being a filmmaker in Hollywood, say?
Well, so I think it's important to know that I'm not just a rapper or vocalist, I'm the producer of the music.
Okay.
So in that sense, there's not a lot of difference, because the producer in music is often more like the director in
Sure,
film.
that makes sense.
So,
yeah.
And I've said something like this before. Like, if if I'm the producer on a song, I might have the best bass player in the world right here, and the drummer over there that thinks he's the best drummer in the world but really isn't, and the crazy guitar player. And they may each know more about music in general than I do, and they definitely know more about their instrument than I do. But I have to get them to follow my vision. And that means it's not just to make something good. They can't just be following my vision because I've hired them. I have to get them to really buy into it and see that vision. So I have to know how to communicate with them and figure out what pushes their buttons to do that. I also have to realize that the guitar player is going to want his guitar up in the mix and is going to want a long solo.
Right.
And I have to know that I have to realize that his suggestion about that may not be what's best for the song.
Right. Gotcha.
And that also the bass player may have a way better riff than what I had. And I have to be like, wow, that's
recognize
what
that.
Because I have to attach my ego to the finished thing, as opposed to the steps along the way. And and also, it's nothing about making a movie is as hard as doing a 10-hour ride in a van with your band members when the guitar player and the keyboard player just got in a 2-hour drunken fist fight.
I see. So movie making's a breeze.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I think the world's already waiting for your next venture, so good luck on 14 of those great ideas you're working on there. Nice meeting you,
Thanks a lot.
Brooks. Good luck.
All right, cool.
All of my movie reviews are brought to you by Red Wind Casino. See them here first on the KIRO Radio Facebook page and find all of them at mynorthwest.com.